Hey, how you doing, listeners? This is Gina Versa. I'm here for a solo podcast with a friend of the show. His name's Yoshua Shelton. How you doing, Yosh?
Hey, how you doing, Jane?
Good to have you. So this is kind of like a weird sort of topic we've been planning for a while, or I guess like a very niche topic, right?
I don't know if it's so niche anymore, really.
Yeah, I guess it's like, well, it's UFOs, but I guess it's universally accepted in Congress where they talk about it. It's like UAPs,
Yeah,
unidentified aerial phenomenons. So
yeah,
that,
that's the new word is UAP. You can't use UFO anymore.
yeah, it's not kosher. I love how like certain words change over time, where it's like instead of like UFOs, it's like UAPs, which is like almost the same thing, but like slightly different, right?
Yeah, it just makes you feel better about the weirdness of it. That's
Yeah,
literally all it is.
yeah. But I guess before we go into like full on like UFO talk, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So currently I work as a writer, lead writer for the Infographics Show. I never know whether to look at you on the screen or look up at the camera.
Oh, okay.
So if my eye line's weird, I'm looking at you because it just
Yeah.
feels more natural.
Yeah. This is just a conversation. Yeah, you could just keep looking at me.
Okay. Yeah, so right now I work as a writer, lead writer for the Infographics Show. I've done photography. I was a director of photography. I know cameras, which is sort of important for this conversation.
Hmm.
um, I also, before I started this career, though, I was in the military, served for 6 years. I was planning on going career, but then I sort of realized I don't really want to carry a weapon for the rest of my life. So, um, yeah, I just changed tracks, burned a lot of bridges, made a lot of people angry, and came out here to go to film school.
Yeah. And when you were serving, it seemed like there was a lot of like unexplained things that you saw. Um, just kind of where you were stationed, or was it just kind of like was it abroad or was it over here before we get into that?
So, uh, I'm under a 30-year non-disclosure contract, so there's
Okay.
some that I just can't really mention, like stuff that would speak to security procedures or specific incidents,
Gotcha.
stuff like that. But
Yeah.
there's other stuff that I can talk about. Yeah,
Okay.
I know that. So we I when I was in, I worked security for nuclear weapons, VIPs, protection level one resources, stuff like that. And when we were stateside, we were stationed in a restricted area in the Nevada desert.
Hmm.
And
Undisclosed
yeah,
location.
well, it's defunct now. It used to be known
Okay.
as A2, but it's been shut down.
Huh.
Um, yeah, it was shut down. I think like 2010. I think it was. I can't remember. But yeah, we definitely ran across quite a few things during the 6 years I was up there. So I worked at night, worked the mid shift from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. And it was notorious out there that like the night shift was, it was like the Wild West. Like that's when shit happened. Um, it actually started my very first night out there, believe it or not. Like it was like the perfect introduction. Um, we it was me and a group of I think four other guys
Hmm.
that had come on at the same time, fresh from tech school and stuff. And we got taken by one of the sergeants to like this high point inside of the facility where you could look around and see all of it so that he could point out, this is this is that.
Hmm.
And when we were up there, the so we had a triple fence line. It was three fences separated, I forget how many feet apart, and then there were different sensors amongst the fences. Um, and while we were up there, the alarm operator for the fence line called in an alarm on one of we called them MSZs, marker sensor zones. Called in an alarm on MSC that was kind of close to us so that we could literally just turn and look over there and see it.
Mhm.
And I forget which of the sensors that he said it was triggered, but he dispatched a patrol to go check it out. And we kind of just did the natural thing, turned and looked to see what was going on. Plus, we were brand new, so like the sergeant knows it was like, and this is how things work. So watch what this patrol does. Um, we saw it's so I know how memory works because I'm used
Mhm.
to taking a lot of like reports and stuff, and so
Yeah.
I'm not gonna if my details seem a little bland or scarce,
Sure.
it's because I'm sticking only to what I know for a fact I remember.
Right.
I
That
try
you could
really
like
hard.
verify.
Yeah, because you know how memory is, and I try to be very aware and not add extra details. But so when we looked over there, there was like a like an orb of light, and it was right over the fence. It looked like it was riding the fence. I forget which one of the three because the three fences were really close together, maybe like 30 feet apart. And I think it was on the middle one, like the one right in the middle, but I can't quite remember which fence it was. But I do remember that it looked like it was riding the top strand of barbed wire on the fence because it
Mhm.
was just right on it. Um, when we saw the security patrol approach and go do their check, they were surprised, and so they like stopped the truck for a moment, called in over their radio what they saw, and that immediately triggered. I forget what the term was, but there's a specific term for like when you need oh 15 and 5. It's
Mhm.
15 personnel within 5 minutes on scene to respond to security incident.
Yeah.
Um, so that triggered a 15 and 5. Other patrols started responding, and the original patrol came in closer. And when they started coming within maybe like 120, 130 feet of this thing, it started moving down the fence line.
Mm. Like it got scared, or it was like startled.
I mean, I have no idea. Like, it's like impossible to know what its mental state was.
Right. Or
But
or
it,
just it reacted to.
yeah, and that's the thing is that it specifically reacted to them approaching and starting to move down the fence line. But what's strange is that I mean, if this thing is hovering over the fence, and I have no idea if it was literally on the fence or just hovering above it, because from my
Mhm.
vantage point, I was maybe I was about a quarter of a mile away. So from my vantage point, it looked like it was literally riding the top strand of the fence. I don't know. But what's strange is that if it's up there, then why doesn't it just go off, out of the fence line to where like we can't get to it or anything?
Yeah.
Instead, it just literally rides the fence like a rail and it just shoots down the fence line. Um, I don't remember the color, but I have a strong imprint that it was just kind of white. I don't specifically remember the color. I know from where I was, I do remember thinking that thing was about the size of a basketball, and that's what I was thinking at the time.
Mhm.
Again, quarter of a mile away, not a good witness to estimate size and stuff. But um, so yeah, as the patrol kind of as soon as they started taking off, the patrol just literally gunned it and started chasing it. And we have the three fences, and then there's a road right next to the interior fence, and it goes all the way around the perimeter of the entire facility. And so he was following the light along that road while it was on the fence. Two more patrols joined in, and the thing just kept shooting down this fence. They must have been going like 60, 70 miles an hour on this road, like trying to keep up with it. Finally, it got to a place where the fences curved over to the
Mhm.
right, and there was just nothing but empty desert on the left. And instead of following the curve of the fence, this thing did like a 45-degree turn and just shot off into the night, like it shot off into the desert.
Mhm.
Um, and that was it. Like it was over in maybe a minute. And I just remember thinking, like, the fuck did I did I
Yeah.
step into? Like,
Yeah. It's like I didn't sign up for this.
yeah.
Well, like
So
specifically that.
yeah, yeah. I just remember thinking like, what? Like, what the hell is this crap? Um, but like everyone was not used to it, but like it's funny, I know you and I have had this conversation, but
Hmm.
since then and like some of the weird, creepy stuff that I've done for my show,
Hmm.
like I've come to the realization that belief is emotional based.
Hmm.
Like it's not about the evidence. You have the best evidence in the world, but if you don't like the way you feel about the evidence, you're not gonna accept it. You're gonna
Yeah.
reject it. And so like everyone just sort of like, oh, it's just another thing that happened,
Hmm.
write a report about it. And the thing was, we almost never got responses. Like we did a few times, but we almost never got responses from like, higher echelons when
Yeah.
stuff like this would happen. But yeah, that was literally my first night, first hour.
Yeah.
This thing went down. And everyone was just kind of like, yeah, that was super weird, but
Hmm.
just kind of nonchalant about it.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about some of your fellow, like servicemen there, where, there's everyone that's like different walks of life, just they're kind of like, everyone. I mean, obviously, you have a job to do, and you gotta like just keep going the next day. But was there any sort of like reaction to it that you could like stands out from anyone?
I was too new at the time, and plus we weren't allowed to be out on patrols just yet.
Hmm.
So we basically it sucked. We basically were stuck in a room with just us new people for most of the night, like going over manuals and learning stuff. Like it was horrible. So we weren't really exposed to the rest of the flight in order to really talk to them and like see, gain their reactions and stuff.
Right.
Um, but I mean, there were other incidents where when I was, um, fully integrated into flight, um, I don't know. Some people handled it well. Other people did not handle it well at all. Like some of the stuff like really challenged people's, viewpoints. They really
Hmm.
challenged like what people are kind of accustomed to. And like a lot of people would just write it off.
Yeah.
Like even if there was no answer, even if there was no like, even if the most obvious conclusion was this is something legitimately strange, like a bunch of people would just write it off. And that I feel like that's what the general public does with
Hmm.
anything that they don't emotionally like the
Yeah.
conclusion to. They
Yeah.
just sort of write it off like, oh, it's whatever.
Yeah. It doesn't exist because it doesn't affect them.
Yeah. Or like, and what really annoys me about skepticism today is that when they can't come up with an answer, they just disregard it entirely and
Hmm.
pretend that that's a valid position to have
Yeah.
when it very obviously isn't.
Yeah, and the other thing too, I kind of find with some of the skepticism, it almost like seems, I don't know if I'm a little too harsh, but like almost like disrespectful of like certain people's like if it's like a military officer or like an Air Force man, like they're trained to do a certain job and like observe, and it feels like really like dismissive of like
Yeah,
the job that they're doing, right?
yeah, I agree entirely. I have two comments on that. Um, the first one is I don't buy into the whole, oh, he was in the military, or oh, he's a cop, so he's a more credible witness. Like I don't buy into that at all
Hmm.
because like I did the job, so
Yeah.
I knew the people. Um, but having said that, my personal annoyance is okay. Uh, while I was in, I received numerous certifications to be able to do this job and that job, and one of them was a central security controller. And my responsibility was I would monitor the radio net. When an incident happened, I provided support to the on-scene commander by, looking at the map, telling him where he could move his forces, stuff like that. I coordinated with local and federal law enforcement during incidents. I coordinated the response of the augmentation force. It was a serious job, and it was extremely high pressure. We would have, so any facility that deals with nuclear materials, nuclear weapons, anything like that, every, I think it's 18 months, they're inspected by the Department of Defense. So an inspector general team directly from DoD flies out, and they do, it's like a week long inspection. I think it's a week.
Hmm.
And it's no bullshit. It's pretty serious. If the facility fails the inspection and gets decertified, they will come back, I think 3 months later, and do a second inspection. And if you fail that, the very next day, all the nuclear material is being flown out. And that is a nightmare. Ask anyone who's ever served at a base where they have nukes and has lost their certification. It's a fucking nightmare. Like, people are working 18, 20-hour shifts for like 2 months in a row because you got to get all these weapons and materials out. Yeah, your career is going to, if you're the guy that fails it, your career is like done.
Yeah, it's like choose something else
Yeah.
to go into.
So
Yeah.
I was central security controller for two of those inspections, and if you're anything else, there's some leeway. You know, if you fail something, there's a bit of leeway for most other things. The central security controller was pass fail, period. If you so when they would run the exercise to test you and stuff, um, there's all these checklists that you have to pull every time there's any sort of incident. And it's literally dozens of checklists, and you have to know exactly which ones to pull. And you go over every single step with a grease pencil. And you have to make sure every single step on these checklists is done. And even the most mild incident, you're pulling like 5 or 6 checklists.
Hmm.
So on top of doing that, you're also handling the phone because you have got everybody from the base commander to like federal law enforcement, local law, like everyone's calling you. It's a
Hmm.
fucking madhouse in there. And then you're running the radio net because you have to monitor the on-scene commander and keep him updated and like know what's going on with on-scene forces. It is the most high-stress thing I've ever done. So if you make one mistake as CSC, it's immediate fail for your
Hmm.
facility. Like, you're done. So it's so much more stress during an inspection.
Hmm.
And here's the thing that annoys me about unhealthy skepticism. I was certified to do that job for like 2.5 years. I
Hmm.
went through two inspections from the DoD, passed
Hmm.
both of them, got commended for one of them. And yet, when I tell you, oh, there was an upright walking ape outside of my camp in Oregon, people are like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about, or you misidentified a bear, or like, and it's like, okay, you have to make a choice. Like, am I trustworthy and competent enough to be central security controller for a nuclear weapons storage depot? But at the same time, I'm too stupid to know that a bear was outside my camp and
Just
not something walking on two legs with fucking
mhm.
arms and shoulders and a head.
Yeah. It's like, they both can't be true at that same time. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. Well, going off of skepticism, like what do you think like the biggest myth in like UFOs are, and like just like the study of it, like just that you're like, okay, this is like these are the facts and this is like just just
Yeah.
not correct. Yeah.
I think that's a tough question because like nobody knows anything, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, Nobody really knows what these things are. They happen. Like, I think if anyone is sitting at home and thinking UFOs don't happen, whatever they are, I'm not saying aliens, but whatever they are, that person's dead wrong. Like, they happen. This is a fact.
Hmm.
Um, so it's really hard because we know basically nothing really, to be like, oh, this is definitely, I mean, hell, who knows, they could be from Zeti Reticuli and here to teach us to hug each other, and like, I don't fucking
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. No one
uh,
knows.
what I will say though is I heard a CIA guy one time say, I love UFO sightings because the more UFO sightings there are, then the less likely that a Russian or Chinese person looking up into the sky is going to think to themselves, oh, US Air Force, as opposed to, oh, it's a UFO.
Hmm.
So uh, just having a little bit of familiarity with the intelligence community,
Hmm.
um, I know for a fact that not all of these are legitimate. I
Right.
know for a fact that our government and other governments have hoaxed for their own purposes,
Right.
because it's a great cover. It really is.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
fantastic cover.
Yeah. Because it's like, it's literally unexplained. That's why it's like a
Yeah.
UFO. Do you kind of feel the for like UAPs, like some of the pushback where a lot, bases security, certain bases security are compromised or what have you. Like why do you think where it's like it's detrimental, but then they're pushing back against the idea? It's like are certain skeptics that are in higher rankings, are they like just too biased to like just accept there's like something you can explain, even though if it affects like the job that they're doing?
You nailed it. You really did. The bias thing. That's very real. So we like to think of our military as like professional, competent, and like they even keeled, right? Like that's what we like to think about our military. Is that an airplane over there?
Yeah, that's an airplane. It's not a UFO.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
yeah.
the truth is, and actually, what the group doing the UAP investigation for the Pentagon, what they discovered is that there is a culture of pushback in the military. Um, UFO reports, anything weird or strange, there's serious pushback against it. And it's a cultural thing because these people grew up in a culture where stuff like that was mocked and ridiculed, and the people that reported it were crazy or they were drunk or
Hmm.
whatever. It was a career killer in a lot of
Yeah.
cases. Like that's the type of ultra conservative state of mind,
Hmm.
not the political ideology, but the state of mind was so ultra conservative that like anything out of the norm was immediately discarded.
Right.
Um, I mean, there's a culture of ridicule behind it, and the people running the UAP investigation for the Pentagon right now, in one of their reports, that they said we need to directly address this culture because it's hurting us, especially if some of these objects are from a foreign adversary and they're not being reported, they're not being taken seriously because they very could be.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
so yeah, you nailed it. Yeah, you absolutely nailed it.
Yeah. Because it's like, well, at what point do you think it like the culture like shifted? Because it's like you have like Obama like on I forgot where it was, like Jimmy Kimmel probably, and he's like, "Oh, let me be clear. We don't know what this is. It does exist, you know." And it's like you could like or dislike Obama, but the fact that you have like a former sitting president that was like, "Yeah, like this exists," but it's like I don't know what it is, you know?
Yeah, I think it's I think it's directly tied to the rest of our culture why attitudes are changing.
Yeah.
And honestly, this might piss some people off, but it's the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Things like the fact that like we now accept homosexuality a lot more than we used to.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the fact that people are now being more open-minded
Mm-hmm.
is literally changing our entire culture, and it's
Hmm.
making things like this be more acceptable.
Yeah.
We've recognized the harm that this unhealthy skepticism does. I mean, people have killed themselves
Mm-hmm.
because of this. There was a prominent government official, I forget his name, but or sorry, it wasn't an official. He worked for the government. He was a scientist or something. I can't remember his name, but he killed himself
Mm-hmm.
because he reported this UFO sighting, and everyone just mocked him and like tried to destroy his career, and he threw himself off a building. So I think the cultural shift to where we're being more open minded about stuff is having direct repercussions as far as stuff like this.
Yeah. Yeah, and then it's like, like I think it was like the last administration that I'm not gonna name, where they're just like declassifying like all these documents towards the end, and this could have been like a previous like outside of that person's like control or what have you, and it's like that's
Mhm.
when you think about it, like they're classified for like 50 years, and it's not just stuff like where it's like, oh, okay, it's like Roswell or what have you, but it's like just everyday reports of like what was that, the UAP that's the most infamous one over
The
San
Tic
Diego,
Tac.
the Tic Tac, yeah, that's
Yeah.
correct. And it's like you have the whole video just released, and I remember like really like a vague memory of that when it actually happened, because it was like 2004, right?
I think
Okay.
so. I
That
think
like
the incident, yeah.
Yeah, the incident itself, and I remember that was like I was like 10 or 12, like just watching that on MSNBC, and the MSNBC guy was like kind of laughing it off. He's like, oh, like, it's just a UFO, and it's like that's crazy that you go from like it's reported on the news and laughed off to like, oh, okay, we have like a like government body just like declassifying it and putting it
Yeah.
just out in the ether. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a pretty significant tonal shift there to go from ridiculing it to we need to figure out what this shit is.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, how do you feel like it'll be like? I mean, we can't even predict it, but maybe in like the next 10 years or something.
Uh, so what I'm excited about is the fact that like there's being a serious effort to
Hmm.
actually investigate the phenomenon because again, like this is real. This happens. Whether it's alien, I don't know. I have no idea. Nothing I ever saw or experienced said alien, but what I saw and experienced, it's something incredibly not normal is going on.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know, but it's exciting that there's some serious investigation. There's a civilian investigation. I think it's the Galileo Project, is what they
Hmm.
call it, um, where they're using, real scientific methods and they're slowly accumulating equipment to investigate this stuff. I think that's going to be really important for bringing it to the forefront of people's thoughts. And I think what is most hardening for me is the thought that maybe in 10 years, cultural attitude will have shifted from this is a joke and, you were drunk or stupid or you don't know what
Yeah.
you're saying to more acceptance. And so more people will feel free to come forward and like give their accounts. And then maybe slowly we can start changing the culture of,
Yeah.
around this whole thing.
Right. Because it's like how like difficult is this to say is like there was an object in the sky. I'm not saying it's like an alien or it's like something from another world. It's literally unidentified, and it probably should be identified just for security or just for the peace of mind of like the public or something, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Or, I mean, what if it is from a foreign adversary and we're completely ignoring it because we're just playing it off as a joke?
yeah, yeah, exactly. It's crazy, yeah, and it's just like it's not like what was it, the thing in World War II where they're like gremlins, the gremlins
Yeah.
on the airplane. It's like,
Gremlins and Foo Fighters.
yeah, Foo Fighters, which Foo Fighters could have been a thing, but yeah, just the fact that it's like, okay, it's this this specific sort of craft and can't identify it. It's
Hmm.
like it shouldn't be that foreign. So
Yeah.
I think that's just such a conundrum. Yeah.
I have a gremlin story, by the way.
You have a gremlin story?
I do.
Okay. Do you want to say it? Is it like, were you on an aircraft or something, or?
No, no. I mean, it's not spectacular, but it was very weird and spooky.
Hmm.
Um, I one day I had to go. So next to the area where we had nukes and all those materials, there was an adjoining facility next to it where it was just conventional bombs, like thousands of just conventional bombs.
Hmm.
And when the base was preparing for like a big exercise or something, they would bring the bombs out onto these hot pads, and so you'd have just 2,000-pound bombs just sitting on a concrete slab in the middle of the desert. I mean, there was obviously a fence line around the facility and stuff, but um, Yeah. So me and my partner were assigned to the conventional weapons area, and we were parked outside right next to one of the hot pads,
Yeah.
and like we started hearing this sound, and it was like it was like a cooing sound, like a real soft cooing sound.
Hmm.
And I mean, by this time I've been out there for years, so I knew all the critters out there. This was
Yeah.
nothing like that. And like it kept happening, and it was coming from the hot pad. So finally, me and my partner get out because they're like, all right, we have to investigate. It's literally our job. So we get out and we go in either end of the hot pad so that we can kind of like push my hand so you can see.
Yeah.
We push along the side together on opposite sides because the bombs are arranged in rows, and that way we can still see each other, and like nothing can really hide from us, basically.
Mm.
And as we're doing our security sweep, the cooing sound moves, and it stays always right ahead of us. But like there was nothing around this hot pad except desert. And when we got to the end of the hot pad, the cooing sound was now coming from the desert in front of us. Uh, but again, it was just there was no wadis, there was nothing for anything to hide. Uh, I mean, yeah, we used night vision, we used thermals. There was nothing up there. We easily
That's
spot an animal in thermals.
that's creepy.
Yeah, and it was I felt like this thing's luring us. Like it keeps luring us further and further away
Yeah.
from the vehicle. Um, so once we got to the edge of the hot pad, we we're like, all right, you know what? These bombs are secure. That's our job. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, we just went back to the vehicle. We just kept an eye out. We didn't hear it again after that.
Well,
But
yeah,
I've
that
had people be like, oh, it could have been an owl or something. Like, no, dude, no.
I
We
think
were on thermals. We saw nothing on thermals.
yeah, that's so fun. That's creepy.
Yeah.
So like are there any like UFO reports outside of your service that you find like really credible and like anything that was like popularized or, kind of has been in the public consciousness for a little bit?
So I think the one that comes to mind, that immediately comes to mind, is I forget the country in Africa. Was it Zimbabwe?
Oh yeah, it was Zimbabwe. Yep, it
With
was
the
the
kids.
the aerial school incident, I think is the correct
Yeah,
name.
yeah. Um, that one's always kind of been really interesting to me because you just had so many witnesses, you know?
Mhm.
Um, all of the kids saw it, some of the teachers saw it, and
Mhm.
they all drew the same, generally the same thing. Other kids, they can't draw for shit,
Yeah.
uh, but they generally drew the same thing, and they described the incident the same way. Um, there's just so many witnesses, and I recently, well, not recently, but I saw like 2 years ago a documentary where they brought those kids, now adults, some of
Mhm.
them back together, and they still were telling the same story and describing the same thing. So, I mean, for a fact, something happened.
Yeah.
Uh,
I was gonna say, do you know actually one of the kids that saw something? He's kind of like a public figure actually now.
oh no, I didn't. I totally didn't know that.
Yeah, I think his name. I don't know his last name. His name's Zaw, right? And
Hmm.
he's a little person, but I think he's like a producer or he works on the show podcast. It's called Barstool Sports, and this
Wow,
is
I
like yeah,
had
it,
no idea.
it's like a sports podcast, and like there's like because it's like it just randomly got in my like Twitter feed or whatever, and there's just this guy that's just on a sports podcast, and they're just asked like either someone found out and they're just asking him about it for like 10 minutes straight, and they're just like fascinated about it. And he's like, yeah, I was there, and he's just like he says exactly what because I read about the incident like the other people say. He's just like talking about it, and it's just like yeah, this incident, just people that are like, just in like the public consciousness, I guess. And this is like,
Hmm.
he said the same thing as other people. So,
Yeah, yeah. I always thought that one was pretty credible. There's also a report from 1954, I think it was, also from it was somewhere there around that region in Africa, and it was from a American pilot
hmm.
who I'm trying to remember the exact details. So uh, during the 50s and the 60s, the CIA was monitoring everywhere you could get uranium from for
Okay.
obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, we're still doing that. And there was a craft spotted near a uranium mine, or, at least they thought it was a craft. And I can't remember if the American pilot that came in, I can't remember if he was working for I don't think he was working for the CIA. I think he was just a civilian that happened
Hmm.
to be in the area. And he brought his plane in to take a closer look at it and
Okay.
pseudo chased it, not really, just kind of tried to keep pace with it and check it out. And like this guy was a World War II, like I think he was like an ace in World War II or something like
Oh,
that.
shit. Okay.
But what was convincing about it was not just the witness; it was the fact that the CIA officially took the report, and they had people on the ground that confirmed the sighting. Like they had actual CIA officials that confirmed the sighting. The report was classified for like 60 years. So it was only recently unclassified.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I always found that one credible because anything to do with uranium during that time, I mean, kind of still today,
Yeah.
but like, nobody was playing around
Yeah,
with that stuff.
exactly. It's dangerous.
Um,
I guess kind of I have a question where I don't know if this is just me being like just a, kind of a civilian, but like and these are like highly trained people. Is there any like urge and these are like, trained pilots. Do you think there is there any urge or this just to observe? Why hasn't anyone ever tried to like engage with like like a UAP or kind of like maybe they felt threatened to like, maybe like uh attack the craft or something like that? Do you think? Can you speak to that?
so I know that I've heard of attempts. Um, there is a verified account from Iran, actually, where Iran attempted to engage one of these things, and I forget the exact details of the account, but I know that the plane ended up crashing. Like it lost electrical power, ended up crashing. Um, so yeah, there's been attempts, but I can't speak for like a fighter jockey who's up there and all of a sudden this thing shows up. I
Hmm.
know personally, if I saw that this aircraft was doing maneuvers that would shred my aircraft,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna try to shoot it down. Like
Yeah.
as
Just
long as you're
survival.
not, yeah, like as long as you're not messing with me, like hey, go loiter, do your weird figures, and like
Hmm.
it's not like I can stop you.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just curious because it's like, like there's stuff where it's like, we're like when you talk about like Bigfoot, it's like, there's hunters and there's just almost like a fear of like actually like they have a gun and the Bigfoot's the Sasquatch. It's probably threatened by it, but it's like the hunter is not gonna like just shoot it unless it's like directly, in front of it
Yeah,
or something. So I guess that kind of logic would go to the UFOs, right?
yeah. Plus, specifically with like fighter pilots, who are carrying live ordnance,
Hmm.
like man, if you've misidentified where you're firing at, and also just the act of actually launching a missile during peacetime, and like it's a whole shit show.
Yeah,
Like I could see why a pilot would be like, you know what, I'm not dealing with like this potential shit show about to come down on my head because I discharged a weapon, you know.
exactly. I was gonna say, kind of changing the subject here. I'm really curious, like what, and I don't know if this is a little too personal, but like, what is the first like memory you have of just like knowing about like a UFO? Like, can you like identify it and like, when you're a kid, or just kind of like were you like fascinated? Maybe watch some random documentary or something like UFO hunters or something crazy.
I know that I was kind of into stuff like that when I was a kid.
Hmm.
Um, but I never, I did see some weird stuff when I was in Alaska, not UFO related. Um, but like, I never really actually saw a UFO until I actually joined the military.
Oh, okay.
And that's when I saw my first one. Um, I think I ended up seeing like three of them while I was in,
Hmm.
um, and like had pretty hair raising close encounters with something. I have no fucking clue what,
Yeah.
but something.
What's a story that like where it won't like jeopardize any of the NDAs or something that you could kind
Mm.
of tell the listener like that's like okay is like this is my account, this is like I cannot explain it, this is kind of like for lack of a better word like a definitive proof of like UAP from my account.
So yeah, for me, it would be definitive proof. Obviously, for other people, it couldn't be. I actually have two.
Sure.
Uh, I'm trying to remember which one happened first. I believe, yeah, I think I know which one happened first. So we had inside of the facility, we had patrols on the inside, and then we had three patrols on the outside, and they were responsible for responding to anything that happened outside of the fence line. Um, in the case of an actual attack, they were basically speed bumps. Like, sorry, but you're not surviving out there by yourself.
Yeah.
Um, but one night I was assigned to one of the exterior patrols, and we got a call from an interior patrol that they saw headlights on the side of a mountain kind of coming our way. And we had a small mountain directly outside where we were at. And it
Mhm.
was not uncommon to see, for civilians to drive to go off roading out there and stuff. And we would mostly leave them alone because they'd have no idea we were out there, anyways. Um, but once they crossed a certain line, uh, we would move to intercept them and make sure that they turn around.
Yeah.
So I looked over to where the patrol said that they saw. I drove to a bit of high ground, so I get a better vantage point. Looked over to where the patrol said they saw the headlights, and sure enough, you could see like they look like two headlights bobbing up and down, in the dirt as it's going on the side of this mountain. Look through night vision, and yeah, it looks the way the headlights look. They bob up and down, illuminate the ground when they bob down. Like it, I was convinced it was a truck. So kind of watching it, uh, and it starts getting close to the point where it's like, okay, we're gonna have to go intercept this truck. And before it kind of gets to that point, the headlights suddenly shut off. So that kind of like had alarm bells going off in my head because that means that this isn't just a civilian out there, that has no idea we were out there. Um,
Hmm.
this means that they're turning off their headlights to be hidden, so they know we're out there.
Yeah.
Could it be a foreign intelligence agent? Could it just be, curious looky loos? I don't know, but
Yeah.
they know that we're out there. So me and my partner moved to a point where we know that anybody coming our direction has to come across us, or we'll at least be able to spot them. Um, we also call for canine patrol to come back us up.
Hmm.
So it's me, my partner, who had been there for I think like 6 months,
Okay.
um, the canine guy and his dog, and we're kind of crouched in a wadi, just keeping an eye out in the desert in front of us because they have to come our way.
Yeah.
Um, we're out there maybe like 5-10 minutes, and there's no sound. We get nothing on night vision, nothing on thermals, which is strange because even if you turn the headlights off a truck, trucks run hot. And even if
Yeah.
you turn the truck off, that truck's going to be visible for like a half hour on the on
Right.
the third. Nothing, absolutely nothing. The dog is not indicating at all. So
Is he
yeah,
like is he just because he's obviously trained, did you feel like he was like was it how was like the state of the dog? Like was
he was
he
chill. He was totally chill,
okay.
totally not reacting to anything.
Okay.
Uh, so we get a call from an interior patrol who by now we've had patrols on the inside go to like pieces of high ground where they can look out over us, and look over the desert. And we get a call from one of the patrols, and he says, "Hey, be advised, you've got a bright light to your 9 o'clock." And I was like, "Oh, sorry, no, the first one was at 3 o'clock." And he
Okay.
said a color, but I don't remember the color of the light.
Hmm.
And so we immediately looked to our 3 o'clock. There's nothing. Can't see anything. And the desert's flat here. We see nothing. I call back asking other patrols to verify that they're seeing it too. Everybody sees it. All the patrols see it. I think it was like 4 patrols dispatched to high ground to overlook us, to overwatch us. Everyone's seeing it. Like a minute later, we get another call, different patrol. It says, "Hey, be advised, now you've got a light at your 9 o'clock. Look at our 9 o'clock. Nothing. Can't see a single thing.
That's
Uh,
creepy.
Look at the dog. See if the dog's indicating. Dog is chill. Dog is bored. Nothing. So I call our flight chief, Security One, and I ask him to change to the clear speech channel where we can talk, freely. And I'm like, "Hey, Sergeant Crawford, what the hell is going on? Like, are you guys joking with us?" And he's like, "No, but like, I can see them. Like, there's 2 lights out there. There's one to your 3, one to your 9. Like, what can you see?" And I'm like, "I can't see anything, Sergeant. Like, I cannot see anything out here. We got nothing on thermal, nothing on night vision." And his voice sounds a little concerned. So I know they're really seeing this stuff. Um, my partner still has his radio on the normal frequency. And over the normal frequency, another patrol calls in that now there's a third light. This time it's at our 12 o'clock. So now we've got our about 200 meters behind us is the outermost fence line. So we got the fence line behind us. We've got a light to 3, 12, and 9. We're basically hemmed in by these lights. Um, Before like any of us can really react or anything, somebody I don't remember who, but somebody calls over the radio in a panicked voice saying, "Hey, the lights are moving on you." Um, so the way that they later what they describe seeing is we're in the center and these lights start at the same time, same speed, moving directly onto our position. Um, I told my partner, I was like, "Hey, lock and load. Like, put one in the chamber, put a grenade in the, because he was carrying that 203 under the barrel."
Oh,
I
okay.
was like, "Put a grenade in, put a round in the rifle chamber." I chambered around, K9 chambered around, and the dog is like not reacting at all. Like,
Okay.
no response. So we're sitting there. I'm facing the 12 o'clock light. My partner's facing the 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
K9's facing the 9 o'clock. Um, Nothing. Absolutely nothing. No sound, no visual, no nothing on thermal, night vision. What I don't realize at the moment is that our radios aren't working. I'm so caught up in the situation that I don't even realize that I haven't been hearing anything over the radio. So after about 10 minutes of just sitting there waiting for something to happen, finally I'm like, "You know what, guys, fuck it. Like, let's just head back to the vehicles. Let's head back towards the fence line." Um, that's about when we realized that nobody's broadcasting over the radio. So we try all 3 of our radios and nothing. We get nothing.
Hmm.
We start walking back towards the vehicles, which are near the fence line. And finally, once we start getting near the fence line, is when our radios start working again. And we hear patrols calling and saying, "Oh, yeah, we can see them. They're coming out of the desert." I realize that they've been looking for us.
Hmm.
So my Security One he calls me on the radio. He's like, "You need to in process immediately." So
In
I take
process.
me, yeah. So when you're, uh, so we have an entry control point,
Hmm.
which every vehicle coming in or not has to process through to check for, weapons, materials, all that stuff.
Oh, okay.
And so it's a whole ordeal. Um, so I went in process, met with my Security One, and the first thing he told me is like, "Where the hell were you? Why were you ignoring the radio?" And I was like, I thought that I don't know. Like I didn't even think about the radio, but it wasn't working. Like none of us heard anything. Uh, Come to find out that I thought we were there for like 10 minutes. He says that we were out of radio contact for at least 20 minutes, according to the radio logs. But I could swear it was like half that much time. Um, yeah, that was, yeah, again, that's difficult because I never saw anything. Never. Like, didn't hear anything, didn't see anything. But it's the fact that so many other people did, and I know that they weren't joking. Like, this was serious. Um, the second one, which I got got a little bit of proof. So every night we would practice. We would have an exercise to practice either tracking people to the desert or like recapturing weapons. All these various security scenarios. And we had a designated. I forget how many of the storage bunkers with weapons that we had, but we had one designated for us, and it was
Uh-huh.
empty, and it was just for us to practice assaulting the other bunkers.
Okay. Like a drill, like a training drill and everything.
Yeah. Um, so we were at the training structure and running an exercise, and we were practicing an assault and recovery of weapons inside the bunker. So we have, patrols responding. The fire team comes up to the doors with the machine gun and stuff. Um, in the midst of us preparing the assault element that's going to actually assault into the structure, we get a call from one of our overwatching machine gun teams who's like on high ground, and their job is to just look over everything and provide fire support if needed. We get a call from him saying, "Hey, be advised, I got two individuals with thermals on thermals out in the desert behind you guys." And so we immediately adjust the priorities, recapturing weapons and neutralizing threats inside the bunkers. So I was on scene commander, and I tell the assault team, I'm like, "You guys go," and then I'm reworking the people outside to provide security for anyone that might try to attack from behind us. As I'm in the midst of doing this, our flight chief comes running up, kind of like red faced and out of breath, and he's like, "Hey, terminate exercise. This is real world. I didn't put anyone out there." So we're like, "Oh shit, this is the worst case scenario." Well, I guess in a worst case scenario, someone's inside the bunkers with the weapons. But like the fact that someone has gotten through 3 fence lines, triggered no alarms, they are in like this is those you see those signs on like facilities like lethal force is authorized.
Yeah.
This is killing time. Like
Yeah.
someone's
Yeah.
gonna die tonight.
Mm-hmm.
So we terminate the exercise, completely reorient to do a security sweep out into the desert because our machine gun team is telling us that these two individuals are proned out and they seem to be observing us. They say they're about like a good 120 meters behind us in the desert. So we start a security sweep, pushing through while we've got 2 patrols. One has like a 240 and the other one has a 249 on up armored Humvees.
Mm-hmm.
And they're literally just watching from the turrets, ready to just unleash hell if anybody pops up. Because there's no more talking at this point. Like,
Yeah.
you've
It's
gotten
go
this
time.
close, you die. That's it. You're just dead.
Yeah.
So as we're doing the sweep, the overwatching team is keeping us updated, and he says, "Hey, they're crawling backwards." And so we know that they're reacting to us pushing through.
Mm-hmm.
So based off what they're feeding us, now we can't see anything. We can't see anything on night vision on thermals because it's very heavily like there's a bunch of scrubs, scrub brushes. So we can't really see anything. We can't see more than maybe 15 meters ahead of us with either night vision or thermals. So we're pushing. Everyone's locked and loaded, ready for shit to just go down.
Yeah.
When we get within like 20 meters of them, the overwatching patrols goes, "Hey, they just disappeared on me." And our security one's like, "What do you mean they disappeared?" And he's like, sir, they dropped off the thermals. Like, they were there one moment, now they're gone.
Jesus.
So we continue to push, and we get to the spot where they were last seen. These two figures were last seen. And on the thermals, you could look at the desert ground, and because it
Hmm.
was cold, this was winter, yeah, you could still see residual heat. So it was faint, but it was there, which means that there really was two individuals out there. Like,
Hmm.
this wasn't a digital projection or artifact in the thermals. Like, there was residual heat on the ground from where two bodies had been laying down. Um, yeah,
Hmm.
we never found anything that night. Like, we never, that residual heat's the only thing we ever got. Um, so I have no idea. I have no idea who or what this could have been.
Yeah.
Uh,
Do you,
no
I
clue.
know, I know we're kind of short on time, but I was just wondering what was the, like, the night, like, as you're like all this information and everything just happened, like what was the, like, how did you like process everything, like the night, the day or the night of, like, you're going to bed, like do you remember anything from that?
So like, um,
Because that's a lot.
there's
That seems like, like
yeah,
life changing stuff.
it's weird because like when you when you experience something like that and you're left with no explanation. And I mean, we had at the time some of the best sensor technology the US military had, because we're a nuclear weapons storage facility, you know?
Hmm.
And when all of that equipment fails to give you answers, and
Yeah.
you've got like 40 people scouring this entire facility and there's no sign of penetration, there's no nothing, your brain just kind of writes it off. Like, and
Yeah.
that's exactly what happened. Like, we were on higher alert for like a week after that. And everyone mentally was sort of like, it could happen again. There could really be someone out here or something. I don't know. But like, once it dies down, your brain's just like, oh yeah, that happened. And it
Yeah.
just kind of like, I don't know, maybe it's a survival thing so that your
Hmm.
brain doesn't break. But it's
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, that happened. No big
Yeah.
deal.
It just packs it in like the unidentified file or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I know we don't, I know we have very little time, but
Hmm.
believe me, that's some of the less weird shit that
Yeah.
like we saw and happened out there, which not necessarily UFO related, but
Hmm. Hmm.
yeah,
Maybe a part two.
it was kind of the Wild West, dude. That place was, it opened my eyes. Let's say that the world's not as naturalistic as we like to think it is.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, that sounds like that's insane. But yeah, I guess kind of winding down here, and we have you just for a few minutes. Like, any like final thoughts you could leave us with before you go?
Yeah. Don't be so hard on people that say that they've seen something, but at the same time, if you've seen something, don't be so quick to believe that it was unexplained. Like,
Hmm.
I had a friend who told me about her UFO sighting that she had. And when she described it, I was like, oh, that was probably an iron meteorite. Um, because she described the color as it was going through the sky and stuff.
Hmm.
And I think there's a lot, like, people aren't really aware um, of stuff like that. Like, meteorites of different compositions will create different glows, different color glows. Some of them will create like a neon glow, and we're not used to seeing something like that. So, like, if you've seen something, don't be so quick to jump to it was, something unexplainable. Like, maybe do a little bit of research. And I know it's easy to be defensive because you get attacked so much if you're a public witness, but kind of take the time to listen to people that might give some like normal explanation for what you saw rather than just be immediately defensive. um at the same time, if you're on the other end of it though, like, don't be so quick to jump down someone's throat or like ridicule them or something, because this shit can ruin some people's lives. Like, I know of a guy, who was so scared of the Bigfoot encounter he had on his property, he cut down every single tree on his property
Uh-huh.
because he did not want there to be room for them to hide.
Huh.
So like,
That's
it
crazy.
doesn't matter what this guy saw. You don't have to believe in Bigfoot, but this guy saw something that terrified him to the point he spent thousands of dollars doing this. Like, maybe be a little kinder, towards
Yeah.
people that come forward and saying
Yeah.
they've seen this or they've seen that.
If they have this visible reaction to it. Yeah, something did
Yeah,
happen.
yeah.
But yeah, I think that's a good note to end it on. Yash, where can people find you at if you want to promote anything or social media wise, wherever you feel
I kind of
comfortable
don't.
with? Okay,
I kind of don't.
okay. Should we at least lead them to the channel though?
Yeah, check out the Infographics Show. Check out the I Survived the 100 Days of Nuclear War. I Survived the 100 Days of Black Plague.
Nice.
Um,
They're good.
they're really fun kind of series that I write. Um, yeah, I don't know. People seem to like them.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely watch it and I would highly recommend. But I just want to say thank you for your time. Like everything, all these stories were really interesting. We didn't get to certain topics, but I feel like this is just, it was a very interesting and enlightening podcast. So thanks for your
Yeah.
stories. And yeah, you could find me on Twitter, G9892, Instagram as well. Find the Waffle Press at the Waffle Press Podcast on Instagram, on Twitter at the Waffle Press. Thanks, and we're on YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify. Please like, share, subscribe. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We've been professionally unprofessional.